I never fought for money, only to forget what I was born as. Bass rolled through the concrete like an animal pacing in a cage. Steel beams sweated under neon. Steel cage wasn't a club so much as a mouth. People went in to scream and left hoarse and smiling, like they'd been eaten and spit back out shinier. The air tasted like metal and burnt sugar, cheap energy drinks, blood and hope. I flexed my fingers and shook out my wrists as the crowd opened in a sloshy ring. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted my name, the way you yell for a car to hit the brakes. Too late and too excited. I wasn't built like the men who came here to break things. Lean, wiry, quick. My body wanted rhythm more than impact. My hair, dark and sweat damp, curled against my neck. A single copper streak, the only thing about me that refused to blend, kept slipping into my eyes. I blew it away. Blinked. The fume of synthetic pheromone spray clung to my throat, bitter and clinical. It lied for me, and I let it. Tonight, like every night I dared step into this light, I needed to smell like anything but an omega. The DJ cut the track. Silence, held like a breath. Then the beat slammed back in, and I moved. Footwork first, heel-toe, slide, snap. The floor was dusted with resin. I felt grit grind under my palms as I dropped into a freeze, legs scissoring, spine a whip. The ring wasn't only for fists. Here, a dance could be a call-out, a dare, a map to the soft spots. I gave them angles and speed, a story in little slices, a kid running, a kid turning, a kid deciding to stop and make the world yield a step. A shadow slipped in front of me, blocking a thread of blue neon. Aldo, champ of 3 months, maybe 4. Big, barrel-chested, the kind of alpha who had to pull his punches for the sake of whoever he loved. He grinned like this would be fun. It would be. If I didn't mind limping tomorrow. Entertaining, he said, voice like coins in a jar. He rolled his shoulders. But you're on my floor. I'm just renting, I said. Breath easy. Short-term lease. The circle tightened, the smell of bodies shifting. Someone yelled, Aldo. Someone else yelled, Dance boy. I hated the nickname, but it worked. You let them name you, and sometimes you could dance the meaning out of it and make it yours. Aldo rushed. Always the same. Alphas starting with the straight line. Direct, honest, devastating. I slid left, not far, not flashy. My shoulder kissed his forearm instead of my jaw. He blinked. I tapped his ribs with a toe, a placeholder for something I might do later. He tried again, faster. The ring roared. I felt the floor like a second heartbeat. My body ran the list. Measure reach. Count breath. Don't get greedy. Stop playing, Aldo said, panting, a smile still hanging on stubbornly. I'm not, I said, and that was true. Out of the corner of my eye, the balcony rail, matte, black, and behind it a silhouette that hadn't moved since I'd stepped into the light. Tall. Still, the club's new owner. A rumor until last week, and a fact now. Natan. People said he'd bought steel cage to clean it up. People also said he'd once cleaned a city block with his bare hands. His gaze felt like a thumb against the back of my neck. Aldo faked high and came low. I let the punch graze air where I'd been and planted my palms, kicked up into an aerial, pivoting over his shoulder. The crowd gasped. I touched down calm and turned that momentum into a sweep. His knee buckled. He dropped to one hand, recovered quick. He was good. He was used to people either turtling or charging. He wasn't used to being redirected like water. He caught my shirt and yanked me in. I smelled him. Salt, adrenaline, a warm peppery alpha edge, and underneath my own scent straining to edit itself out. I felt my pulse flash stupid and hot along my throat. The spray held. Ish, got you. He grinned. Borrowed time, I said. I stepped in, not away, slid under his arm hip to hip, and gave him the tiniest lift, just enough to float his balance. His eyes widened. I took the opening and introduced his shoulder to the floor. He hit with a sound like a dropped kettlebell. The ring exploded. Howls, laughter, bet settling. Aldo rolled, cursing, then pushed himself up and, good man, laughed. He grabbed my wrist and lifted it. The crowd fed on that gesture like sugar. Dance boy. Someone screamed directly into my soul. I bowed, theatrical enough to make them laugh again, then straightened, pulse skipping. On the balcony, the silhouette moved, descended. Natan up close was the quiet kind of dangerous, not the kind that flared and burned out, the kind that stayed cool until it was time to make decisions nobody questioned. He wore black, mostly. Shirt open at the throat, sleeves rolled just enough to say he didn't mind getting his hands dirty. Gray eyes flicked over me once, taking inventory. Under the clean lines of cologne there was the metallic order of alpha, disciplined, contained, the scent of rules. He didn't offer his hand. I didn't offer mine. You fight like a wolf without a pack, he said. His voice was steel wool smooth, rough enough to catch. I like it. Thanks, I said, and tipped my chin up like I wasn't cataloging exits. But I'm not looking for a owner. The smallest shift at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. An annotation. You think that's what I am? I think everyone who builds cages calls them homes, I said. My breath had evened. The spray's aftertaste crawled over my tongue. My glands ached like scraped knuckles. Hold, I told my body. Pretend longer. His gaze didn't waver. If he smelled anything under the sterile camphor rose of the suppressant, he didn't show it. He did step half a breath closer, as if to test the space I'd claimed. Some alphas did that. Pressure like weather, not touch. Up close, he carried an edge wrong for a man who'd only ever commanded. It was the patience of someone who'd waited for storms to break in his favor, and learned exactly how long to keep still. The ring had fallen quiet around us, or maybe it was just that the sound slipped back, thinned out by the focus between 2 points. You're fast, he said. You're observant, I said. Join my crew. Not a question, not quite a command. A statement that arrived with the weight of a door you could either walk through or get shut behind. Hard pass. A ripple went through the circle. Anticipation, amusement. Aldo snorted softly, a good sport drinking it all in. Natan's eyes shifted, Mercury taking a new shape. He didn't look annoyed. He looked interested, which was worse. You know, he said, conversational. I've seen men hide what they are for pride. I've seen them hide it for safety. I've seen them hide it because nobody ever told them there was another way to live. Which are you? The broke way, I said. It's economical. He angled his head. The lights traced a clean line over his cheekbone. My chest felt too tight, not from fear but from the sense of being read, looked through, not the way alphas looked when they wanted to own something, more like a scholar studying a page that had been erased and written again. Somewhere a bottle shattered. The crowd remembered itself. The noise came back, and the club lived again. He didn't flinch. Name? He asked. Max, he said, and made it sound like a precise measurement. Consider the offer open. I like my freedom, I said. Is that what this is? He glanced at the ring, at the neon, at the sort of place where men came to outrun themselves for 8 songs at a time. Freedom? It's a good impression. He took a breath that I felt more than saw. A dilution in the air, a drafting of the pressure he carried. He was going to leave. Relief pitched weirdly with something sour in my gut. Then he stopped. So subtle it might have been nothing. The faintest crease crossed his brow. There and gone. He leaned in a fraction, nostrils flaring once in a motion so precise it wasn't an animal tick, but an instrument calibrating. The suppressant was holding, but sweat breaks contracts. Heat edits math. Under the sterile veil, my real scent must have sighed. My spine snapped straight without my permission. The omega in me, caged, leashed, taught tricks, read the room faster than thought and threw the deadbolt. I didn't look away. I didn't give ground. The trick with alphas is you don't do either, and you don't pretend you're not doing both. Natan's gaze sharpened, not predatory, confirming. He said nothing for 3 beats. 4. Then the crease smoothed. He stepped back like we were just 2 men at a bar who'd been talking about sports. Enjoy your night, he said softly. It could have ended there. Should have. But he paused with his palm on the rail, turned his head just enough that, The neon cut a line across his mouth and added, almost like a courtesy, lies linger longer than blood. He walked away, leaving the scent of steel and decisions behind him, and the ring swallowed me again. I exhaled through my teeth, slow, like I'd learned to do in rooms where crying wasn't an option and laughing would get you hit. The copper streak slid into my eyes. I let it, just for a second, because there are some things you don't train out. Some things you keep to remember which way is home, and which way is out. The locker room of steel cage always smelled the same. Metal, sweat, and a little bit of something feral that no cleaning crew could bleach away. Scratched mirrors lined one wall, flickering under yellow light. Every reflection looked tired and half-ghosted, like the place was trying to forget who passed through it. I sat on a bench, wrapping my hands with worn gauze that had seen more nights than I'd care to count. My name, Dance Boy, was being shouted outside the hallway, a mixture of laughter and awe. They liked me. I'd become entertainment, a distraction. Crowd's asking for you again, said Milo, one of the club's regulars. A beta. Nervous energy. Good guy. Tell them I'm on break, I muttered. You are the break. He laughed, slipping out before I could reply. Popularity. It came fast here, like a spark in gasoline. I'd won 3 fights, danced through 5 more. People tossed cash, drinks, half smiles. But fame in this basement was just another collar. You start wearing it, and soon you forget how it got there. The door creaked open again, heavier this time. Natan. He didn't knock. Men like him never did. He walked in with a kind of calm that rearranged gravity around him. You've been busy, he said, trying to make rent. His eyes flicked toward the mirror, then back to me. You fight differently than the rest. I like to keep things interesting. No, he said, voice low. You fight like someone who's never been allowed to stop moving. The silence between us stretched. Then he tossed a pair of gloves onto the bench beside me. Spar with me. I blinked. What now? He was already rolling up his sleeves. Call it a background check. The ring was smaller without the crowd. No music, just the scuff of soles and the faint hum of the lights. Natan moved like a machine that had learned grace, every step efficient, deliberate. I moved the way I always did, too fast, too reckless, all rhythm and risk. He threw the first punch, testing. I slipped under it. He didn't miss twice. A sharp impact caught my ribs. Air left my lungs with a sound that wasn't quite a groan. I answered with a kick, low, precise, making him adjust his stance. His smile flickered. Playful, he said. Strategic. You fight to be seen, Max. I froze for half a heartbeat. Excuse me? He advanced, not with aggression but curiosity. You don't fight to win. You fight to prove you exist. I deflected the next jab with more force than necessary. You analyze everyone you hit, or am I just lucky? Only the ones who hide, he said. Our rhythm changed. Each blow, each dodge, was more conversation than combat. I felt his gaze reading me, dissecting, and hated how part of me wanted to be understood. You think I don't see it? He pressed. You fight because you can't stand being invisible. You fight because you were born with a scent you had to erase. The words slammed harder than any punch. The suppressant's bitter taste flooded my tongue again, like panic turned chemical. And you, I shot back, stepping closer until sweat misted between us. Notice everyone you can't tame? That did it. For a second, his composure cracked, just a flicker. But it was there, loneliness, sharp and buried under too much pride. He exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh, and lowered his hands. You're reckless, Max. Occupational hazard. Get cleaned up. He turned toward the exit, then added without looking back. Don't make me regret letting you stay. The door shut. My pulse didn't. That night, the streets outside Steel Cage were slick with rain. Steam rose from gutters, curling around the neon like cigarette smoke. I pulled my hoodie up and cut through an alley, ignoring the ache in my ribs. I'd made it halfway down the block when 2 men stepped out of the shadows. Same jackets, same wolf head emblems stitched on the sleeve. Natan's men. Evening dance boy, one of them drawled. Boss said you've got a unique cologne. Mind if we take a sniff? My gut dropped. The suppressant spray in my bag was nearly empty. Tell your boss he can buy his own perfume, I said. The taller one moved first. I ducked his grab, slammed my elbow into his stomach, pivoted, and used the momentum to kick the second guy's knee sideways. They weren't amateurs, but I wasn't the same dancer they'd seen on stage. One of them managed to catch my wrist, twisting. His knuckles brushed the inside of my forearm, right where the scar was. A thin, silvery line that should have been numb. It moved. A flash of heat rolled through me, deeper than muscle, older than pain. Like something buried under skin had just remembered my name. I jerked free with a snarl that didn't sound human. Both men stumbled back, eyes wide. The shorter one swore, clutching his arm. What the hell was that? I didn't wait to answer. I ran. Rain hit hard, cold enough to sting, but it couldn't wash off what had just woken under my skin. The scar burned like a brand, pulsing faintly with every heartbeat. Behind me, I could still hear one of them shouting into a comlink, "He's not a beta, he's—" The rest was swallowed by thunder. I didn't stop running until the city lights thinned, and the alleys turned into a maze of shuttered shops and old brick. I slumped against a wall, chest heaving, rainwater streaking down my face. The mark, glowed faintly beneath the skin, then dimmed again, as if shy of the surface. Not now, I whispered to it, as if that could matter. Not yet. Somewhere far behind, the base of steel cage still thudded through the night like a second heartbeat. And under it, beneath the noise and fear and rain, I could swear I still heard Natan's voice. Low, calm, certain. You fight like someone who's never been allowed to stop moving. He wasn't wrong. But if I stopped now, I might never move again. The sirens had changed their tone. They used to sound like alarms. Now they sounded like dogs. Hungry, efficient, and too close. The city was under a curfew that no one announced but everyone obeyed. You could smell fear even through the rain. For weeks, whispers spread about the new raids. Unregistered omegas, rogue scents, street cleansing. Most people didn't look long enough to confirm it. The smart ones just looked away. I didn't. Beneath the city, the maintenance tunnels were damp veins, lightless, echoing, endless. I crouched near a broken pipe, breathing through my mouth. 2 kids huddled behind me, barely old enough to shift. Their eyes were wide and yellowing. Feral panic fighting through the suppressant pills. Stay quiet, I whispered. When I say run, you run east. Follow the smell of iron and smoke. There's an old laundry shaft. It leads out near the docks. The smaller one, maybe 15, nodded. Will they catch you? Not if you stop asking questions, I said, softer than it sounded. I waited for the sweep lights to pass above the grate, counted to 3, and motioned them forward. Their bare feet splashed silently through the puddles. The taller kid tripped once, caught himself, and kept going. When the last echo of their steps disappeared, I exhaled. That's when the spotlight hit me. Don't move. Too late. I sprinted, but the tunnel forked into 2 routes, one blocked by collapsed concrete, the other by the sound of boots. The metallic smell of tasers. I turned to climb, but a net hit my back like lightning, electricity biting through muscle. I hit the ground hard enough to taste rust. One of the patrolmen leaned over me, mask glinting. Beta my ass, he muttered, checking his wrist scanner. The device beeped red. Oh, classification. No registry number. Another voice, steady, colder, answered before I could. Put that thing away. The boots shifted. Someone new walked in. Slower, quieter. I didn't need to see the silver gray of his eyes to know who it was. Natan. He stopped beside me, his presence cutting the air like a blade through fog. This one's mine, he said. The patrolman hesitated. Sir. This is a recruit, Natan interrupted. You're interfering with my unit's internal operation. The man stiffened. Under whose authority? Under mine, Natan said simply. You don't argue with that tone. Even the sirens outside seemed to dim. The patrolmen exchanged looks, muttered into their comms and backed off. Natan crouched beside me, his voice dropping low enough that only I could hear. You really have a death wish, don't you? Only on weekends, I rasped. He stood, signaling his men. Arrest him. Quietly. They dragged me out in handcuffs, but I caught the faintest shift in his scent. Metal and rain and something human underneath. Not pity. Not quite. The steel cage looked different when you entered in cuffs. The crowd was gone, replaced by echoing pipes and the sound of distant generators. They shoved me into a narrow room. Half office, half interrogation cell. Natan followed, shutting the door behind him with a quiet click. For a long moment, he just watched me. The light was soft, angled, throwing thin shadows along the scar on his jaw. Heroics, he said finally. That's new. I leaned back in the chair. Didn't know saving kids was illegal now. It's not, he said. But being caught doing it while lying about your scent is… I met his eyes. So what is this? You gonna hand me over? Or hang me on display next to the trophies? He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. I don't hang what I plan to keep. Didn't realize I'd been purchased. His gaze narrowed. You play at being untouchable. But I've seen that look before. On soldiers who think they're martyrs. You're not saving the world, Max. You're just trying to rewrite your guilt. Guilt? I laughed under my breath. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. And there was steel under the calm. You fight for ghosts. You bleed for strangers. You think if you save enough of them, you'll stop being one. That hit too close. My throat tightened. You done psychoanalyzing me, boss? Almost. He stepped closer, close enough that his scent brushed my skin again. Sharp, grounding. You fight like a stray. But strays get hunted. I'm not your pet. Not yet. The corner of his mouth twitched. I wanted to hate him for it, but it came out as something else. Something that sounded too much like understanding. He straightened, pressing a key code into the panel. The cuffs released. Stay here, he said. Under observation. You step outside the club until I say otherwise. I won't be there next time someone points a gun at you. Observation? I echoed. Sounds cozy. Depends on how entertaining you make it. He turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. You hungry? Depends, I said. Is this another test? A faint smirk. You'll know if you fail it. He left before I could decide whether that was a threat or a joke. By the next day, everyone in Steel Cage knew the story. Dance Boy got arrested, and the boss saved him. Rumors spread faster than music. I ignored them, mostly. Natan's men, the so-called pack, watched me with curiosity. Half suspicion, half fascination. Big guys. All muscle and swagger, but not unkind. They called me Beta Boy, though one of them, Kai, added with rhythm. Come on, he said that evening, clapping me on the shoulder. Teach us that foot thing you did before you kicked Aldo's ass. It's called coordination, I said. They dragged me into the training hall anyway. The speakers in the corner hissed when I plugged in my phone. Some old track, low bass, steady beat, filled the space. All right, I said, clapping once. Lesson 1. Don't move like you're about to kill someone. Unless it's the beat. Kai tried first. Terrible. Another guy followed. Worse. Within minutes the room looked like a riot with rhythm issues. I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in weeks. Boss would kill us if he saw this, Kai said between attempts. Then you better get better fast, I grinned. Can't die off beat. The others snorted. For a moment the world didn't smell like iron or fear. Just sweat, laughter, and the faint echo of music against concrete. Then I felt it again. The twitch, under my skin. The mark pulsed faintly, a whisper of heat that wasn't entirely mine. I froze mid-step, hiding it under a stretch. No one noticed. The laughter went on, and I smiled back, pretending. But deep down, I knew the truth. The city wasn't done hunting, and neither was the thing sleeping under my skin. The training hall at night was almost unrecognizable. No shouting crowd, no music, no bets being thrown like coins into a pit. Just the soft hum of lights and the cold reflection of metal. The air hung heavy with sweat and silence, heat and emptiness sharing the same space. I stood in the center, wrapped hands trembling, not from exhaustion, but from anger that wouldn't burn out. Every punch I threw at the bag hit with the weight of the last week. The raids, the smell of tasers, the faces of the kids I barely got out. Leather split under my knuckles. The sound echoed like a heartbeat. Breathe, I muttered to myself. Don't think. Just move. But thoughts had a way of slipping in between the beats. Natan's voice. Stay under observation. Right. Observation, like a specimen. I hit harder. Sweat rolled down my spine. Heat rising until it felt like my skin was about to peel. The suppressant had long since faded. I could smell myself again. Raw, real, dangerously alive. Your rhythm's off. The voice came from the shadows, calm as a loaded gun. I froze mid-punch. Natan stepped into the light. Barefoot, no jacket, sleeves rolled, hands wrapped in training gauze. The lamplight hit the edges of him like he was carved from dusk and control. He watched me, expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he tossed a pair of gloves toward me. They hit my chest and fell to the floor. Put them on. I didn't move. Didn't realize this was another test. It's not, he said. It's a conversation. Funny, I said, grabbing the gloves anyway. You talk with your fists, only when words don't work. The air between us thickened as we circled. He moved like he was made for this space, every shift of weight balanced, every breath calculated. I swung first, testing, and he caught my arm before the punch landed. Too fast. I twisted, used my knee, but he dodged that too. It wasn't strength that kept him ahead. It was patience. The kind that unnerved you before it impressed you. Focus, he said. I am focused. On what? Winning, or proving something. I ducked under a jab and caught his side. Depends. You counting? He grunted, a sound halfway between irritation and amusement. Minutes bled away. The fight stopped being a fight. My movements shifted, sharper, smoother, until they blended into something that wasn't combat at all. It was rhythm. Every strike and step lined with the ghost of a beat I hadn't realized I was following. Natan matched it. His strikes weren't just counters, they were choreography. Each time our bodies clashed, I felt that spark, the one that hummed just beneath skin and logic. Again, he said, breath steady. I swung wide, caught his shoulder. He blocked, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me forward until our chests brushed. The air vanished. He was close enough that I could feel his pulse through the heat between us, steady, calm, dangerous. You're too calm, I said, voice rough. For an alpha. He looked down at me, eyes metallic under the lamplight. And you're too angry for someone pretending not to be afraid. I'm not pretending. He tilted his head, a shadow of a smile crossing his lips. Then stopped shaking. I hadn't realized I was. His hand slipped from my wrist to my shoulder, slow, deliberate. The contact felt like a match strike. For one breath, neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, the air hotter. Why are you really here, Max? He asked quietly. To fight me? Or to feel something that doesn't hurt? I swallowed hard. You sound like someone who's rehearsed that line. He huffed a quiet laugh. You'd be surprised how often people bleed for the wrong reasons. You're one to talk. He didn't argue, just looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Something between exhaustion and curiosity. I'm not the monster they think I am, he said finally. I'm just tired of being one. It wasn't what I expected. The confession slid into the space between us like a blade left on the table, sharp, honest, and meant to be seen. Before I could reply, he moved again. Faster this time. I blocked, countered, missed. The rhythm collapsed, replaced by instinct. I felt it then. Something beneath my ribs. Thrumming, waking. The mark. It flared. Heat racing under my skin, light tracing faintly beneath the sweat. For a second, my hands glowed with a pulse that wasn't entirely mine. I stumbled back, panting. Natan froze. Eyes narrowing. What was that? Nothing, I said quickly, though my voice betrayed the lie. The glow faded as fast as it came, leaving a ghost warmth on my chest. He took a slow step forward. Max. I raised a hand, half warning, Half defense. Don't. His jaw tightened. He stopped. The silence stretched, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Then I laughed. It came out breathless, shaky, but real. You really are the worst way to die, you know that? His brow furrowed. What? Never mind, I said, brushing past him toward the bag again. Go back to your paperwork, boss. I'm fine. He didn't move. For a moment, I thought he'd push, but then he exhaled, long and low, and said, You should learn to rest between battles. Can't. I might start thinking. He gave me one last look, half warning, half something softer, and left as quietly as he'd come. When the door shut, I sank to the floor, chest burning. My hands trembled. Under the light, the mark on my collarbone shimmered once, faint as a heartbeat, then disappeared. The bag swayed in front of me, catching the reflection of the lamp. In it, my face looked different, eyes too bright, smile too sharp. The beast under my skin wasn't sleeping anymore, and for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted it to. Natan's office didn't look like it belonged to the same world as Steel Cage. The rest of the club was steel, noise, adrenaline. His office was glass, height, and silence. The city sprawled beneath us, lights blinking like distant heartbeats. You could see everything from here, except the truth. He stood near the window, back turned, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a folder. It looked old, creased, the paper yellowed around the edges. Sit, he said. I didn't. You sound like a cop. Sit, he repeated, quieter this time, the kind of quiet that didn't need volume. I sighed, dragged a chair out, and dropped into it. My shirt was still damp from training. My shoulders itched where the mark had flared last night. I tried not to fidget. He set the folder on the desk and flipped it open. Photos slid across the glass surface. The top one hit me like a punch. A boy, maybe 10 years old, 2 thin arms, copper streak in dark hair, eyes that hadn't learned to lie yet. Me. Where did you get that? I asked. Storage. The founder kept records. Everything he built, the club, the fighters, even the breeding contracts, was documented. His gaze lifted, cold and precise, including his family. I felt the floor tilt. You went digging. I don't like mysteries in my territory. Well, I said, voice dry, congratulations. You found one with my name on it. He pushed the photo closer. Maxwell Arden, son of Victor Arden. The man who founded this club 15 years ago. He paused. He died during a riot. Or so the reports say. Not a riot, I said. A purge. He didn't blink. Explain. So I did. My father built this place as a refuge, I said slowly. For people like me, Omegas who didn't want to be owned. It worked, for a while. But then the sponsors came, the politics, the power plays. I stared at the skyline beyond the glass. All that light hiding rot. The night they killed him, I was in the basement. I heard the gunfire. Heard his voice, just once, told me to run. So I did. Natan's jaw tightened. You've been hiding ever since? More like, waiting. For what? For this. I gestured around. The city, the club, him, the empire that stole his dream. I came back to tear it down. You mean my club, he said. Your cage, I corrected. The air thickened. He moved around the desk, steps too measured to be calm. You think you're some kind of martyr? You lie your way into my crew, risk exposure, endanger the people under my protection. For what? Vengeance? I stood too, meeting him halfway. Not vengeance. Balance. Don't dress it up, he snapped. You came to burn it down, maybe. I smiled without humor. Maybe I wanted to see if any alpha here remembered what loyalty was supposed to mean. His eyes flared, a silver flash in the city light. Careful. I took a step closer. Why? You'll hit me? Turn me in? Go ahead. You just be proving me right. For a heartbeat, I thought he might. His hand flexed. then stilled. He exhaled through his nose, the anger shifting, less violent, more dangerous. You came back to destroy something my men are trying to build, he said. But what exactly do you think you'll save? The ones who can't fight, I said quietly. The ones who don't get to choose. His voice dropped. You came to remind us that we're monsters? No, I said. I came to remind you that a pack isn't a prison. That stopped him. The tension cracked. Small, almost invisible, but there. He looked at me like he was seeing something he didn't want to name. You sound like your father, he said at last. Yeah, I whispered. He used to say the same thing. Right before they shot him. Silence pressed against the glass walls. The city outside kept flashing like nothing inside mattered. Natan walked back to the desk, his reflection and mine overlapping in the window. You've been planning this for a long time, since I was old enough to know what it cost him. And now what? Now I walk away, I said. Before you have to make a choice you'll regret. He turned then, eyes sharp. You think I'll just let you go? You don't own me, I said, voice steady. You never did. He stepped closer until we were only a breath apart. His scent, steel, smoke, restraint, cut through the sterile air. I could hand you over, he said softly. Expose you. The council would reward me for it. Then do it. He didn't move. The silence stretched thin between us. You don't want to, I said. You're angry, but not blind. You know I'm right. He studied me, gaze tracing every lie I'd ever told. Then his shoulders lowered. Not surrender, control, the kind that hurt to keep. You came for justice, he said, but all you'll find here is blood. Then I'll bleed my way through. Something flickered in his eyes. Something human. You're a fool. Probably, I said. But at least I'm not a coward. The corner of his mouth twitched. A humorless, almost smile. He turned away, facing the window again. The city's glow painted his profile in cold light. Go, he said finally. I hesitated. You're not stopping me? I should. His voice was tired now, but I'm done putting chains on things that fight to live. I started for the door. My reflection caught in the glass. Me, small against his shadow. Behind me, he said, Max. I looked back. If you ever decide to live instead of burn, he said quietly, come back. I held his gaze for a moment, long enough for the words to land somewhere deep under the scar. Don't wait up, I said. And then I left. The elevator hummed as it carried me down, the city's lights sliding past like falling stars. I pressed a hand to my chest, where the mark had begun to stir again. Faint heat under skin. Not yet, I told it. Not until it matters. The rain didn't stop for anyone that night. It came down in sheets, drumming against the rusted roof of the abandoned warehouse like 1,000 impatient fists. The whole district was dead, just concrete skeletons, broken windows, and the low hum of police drones circling like blue vultures above the city. I'd been running since dusk. Didn't even know from who at first, just that something was wrong. The air stank of old oil and faked promises, and the mark beneath my skin hadn't stopped burning since I left Natan's office. By the time I reached the docks, I was bleeding from a cut across my ribs. Didn't matter. I needed distance. I needed to think. Then I heard it. Footsteps. 3 of them. Slow, confident, familiar. I turned, and the past walked out of the shadows. Look what the tide dragged back, said a voice I hadn't heard in years. Jace. My father's old lieutenant. Same scar down his face. Same cruel smile. You've grown, Max. Didn't realize grave robbing was still your hobby, I said, steadying my breath. He laughed. Your father taught us to fight, remember? But he forgot to teach us loyalty. Shame. You could have inherited the world he built. He built a prison, I snapped. Maybe, Jace said, shrugging. But it kept us fed. There were 2 others with him. Hunters, both carrying stun rods humming with blue light. They spread out, forming a half circle. You shouldn't have come back, kid. The council wants your head. Get in line, I muttered. They lunged. The first hit came low, meant to sweep my legs. I dodged, slammed an elbow into his jaw, twisted away, but the second caught my shoulder. Electricity crawled down my arm like a living thing. I hit the ground hard, vision flashing white. Jace crouched beside me, tilting his head. You look just like him. The same eyes, the same arrogance. Maybe I'll carve that out of you, just to make it easier to forget. He raised the rod, and the world exploded. A wall of motion crashed through the doorway, black coat, wet hair, and a roar that didn't belong in this world. Natan. He moved like a storm breaking free of control. Every strike precise, brutal, final. One of the hunters went down before he even realized who'd hit him. The other tried to flank, but Natan turned, catching the blow with his forearm and returning it with enough force to shatter ribs. Jace staggered back, weapon trembling in his grip. You shouldn't be here, he snarled. I get that a lot, Natan said, voice like thunder trapped in human form. They clashed. Sparks and rain filled the air, the hiss of metal and the thud of flesh. Jace fought dirty, fast, desperate. Natan fought like someone with nothing left to prove. I pushed myself up, dizzy, the taste of blood in my mouth. Every movement felt heavy, slow. My mark pulsed faster, responding to something in him. Stay down, he barked without looking at me. Not my style, I gritted out, stumbling to my feet. Jace swung again. Too wide. Natan countered, driving a knee into his stomach. The crack echoed like thunder. But before he could finish it, Jace plunged the rod into Natan's side. The light flared white-blue. Natan staggered. Smoke curled from his ribs. Something inside me broke. I grabbed a loose pipe from the floor and swung it with everything I had. It connected with Jace's jaw. He dropped like a stone. And then, silence. Just rain. The blue hum of drones somewhere above. Natan fell to one knee, blood running down his arm. You really can't follow instructions, can you? He muttered. I knelt beside him. You're welcome. He gave a short, breathless laugh that turned into a wince. I didn't come here for thanks. Then why? He looked at me, tired, furious, alive. Because you weren't supposed to die alone. Something warm twisted in my chest, sharp and dangerous. You're bleeding out. So are you, he said, nodding toward my side. The world tilted. The mark burned hotter now, bright under my skin, glowing faintly through the soaked fabric of my shirt. Natan's eyes followed the light. What is that? My curse, I said. Or maybe my inheritance. He reached forward, fingers brushing my collarbone. The contact sent a shock through both of us. Heat, then cold, then something ancient waking up. He drew a sharp breath. It's reacting. To what? To me. Before I could ask what he meant, he bit down on his wrist. Blood welled dark and fast. He pressed it against the glowing mark on my chest. What the hell are you doing? I gasped, trying to pull back. Saving your stubborn ass, he said. Hold still. The air crackled. Light spilled from the wound, his blood and mine mixing, running down in thin glowing threads. Symbols, circles, lines, something older than language, flared along his arm, then mine. The warehouse filled with a low, resonant hum that felt like it came from under the earth. It didn't hurt. It burned, but cleanly, like something being rewritten instead of destroyed. Natan's voice dropped into something older, guttural, almost not his. By blood shared, by fire bound, by will unbroken. One breath, one heart, until freedom or death. The light exploded between us. I felt it, his pulse merging with mine, his heartbeat slamming through my chest until I couldn't tell which was which. For a second, I saw through his eyes, me, drenched and shaking, my mark burning gold. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, the rain had softened. Jace and his men were gone. Or maybe dust in the storm. The drones hovered at a distance, silent, like they didn't dare come closer. Natan sat beside me, blood mixing with water on the floor. His breathing was shallow but steady. I touched my chest. The mark had changed, no longer a scar but a faint sigil, glowing dimly like cooled metal. You're insane, I whispered. Probably, he said, voice rough. But it worked. I swallowed. You're connected to me now? He met my gaze, eyes burning with silver light. Now, he said quietly, we're either both free or both dead. The words sank in, heavy and final. I looked at the rain outside, the endless, falling curtain, and for the first time in years, it didn't sound like running. It sounded like breathing. Morning after rain has a particular smell. Wet earth, clean metal, paint ambitious enough to believe it can cover history. Steel cage, no longer fit. The old sign came down at dawn with a groan and a shower of screws. In its place, Kai hoisted a new one with both hands and a cuss that made 3 betas laugh out loud. Wolf. Haven. It looked impossible and right at the same time. The letters were simple, hand-brushed, like a promise made without a lawyer. Coffee steamed on the edge of the ring. Someone had brought cinnamon rolls. Someone else had dragged in a box of mismatched towels and labeled it Take 1, Leave 2. The place smelled like sawdust, acrylic, and hope. We opened the doors early. They came slowly at first, a woman with a sleeve pulled down over her wrist, a lanky kid whose pupils were pinpricks from too much suppressant, a beta with scars that didn't belong to any fight worth winning. A boy I'd helped through the tunnels stood on the threshold like the entrance itself might bite. It's okay, I told him, my voice doing the thing Natan's did sometimes, quiet, but with an angle that made space. You're home if you want to be. By noon, the floor was a patchwork of borrowed mats and damp sneakers. The rain kept whispering against the roof, and somewhere out on the street, a drone buzzed, then moved on. We were a rumor they hadn't believed yet. Line up, I called, clapping once. We're not here to learn how to get hit. We're here to learn how not to. Half the room laughed. The other half tried to decide if laughing was allowed. I started with breath, feet under hips, hands up, but not clenched. Bodies learning the difference between bracing and readiness. Kai tried to mirror me, and almost tripped over nothing. I caught his elbow and grinned. Keep your weight forward. Like you're about to kiss the floor but changed your mind. I never change my mind, he said, then did exactly that and got it right. Music ticked on. Low bass, not enough to make the walls shake. Just enough to remind heartbeats they had company. The lesson wasn't fighting, not really. It was pacing. It was learning that movement could belong to you, even when someone wanted to take it away. Again, I said, moving through the sequence, step slide, pivot, guard. Think of it like a chorus. You hit the beats, nobody gets to write the song for you. Chorus. One of the teens asked. Trust me, I said. Your body knows the lyrics. Across the hall, Natan supervised a different kind of build. Paperwork, plugs, roots, and rules. The unglamorous backbone of sanctuary. He'd hung a whiteboard on the far wall with columns and names, meals, showers, meds, counsel, legal. The word legal looked like it wanted to bite someone. Natan was good at keeping it from getting too close to the soft parts. He moved like he always did, in straight lines and clean decisions. But something in him had loosened. The ritual hadn't given me his thoughts or his secrets, but there were flashes, tiny gut pulls when his pulse flared. Against mine, little hitch notices when he caught someone flinching and looked away long enough for them to breathe. We weren't chained. We were tuned, maybe, like 2 radios finding the same station in a storm. At midday, the debate started. Alphas are stronger, said a thick-shouldered guy named Leon, flexing like the poster child for bad science. Omegas are faster, countered Tasha, who'd already outstepped half the room in 10 minutes flat. And slipperier. Slippery is not a metric, Leon argued. It's a lifestyle, Tasha shot back. They all turned to me, grinning like wolves smelling a game in the brush. Referee, Kai said. Settling vote. Who's stronger, an alpha or an omega dancer? I took a drink of coffee, enjoying the way silence stretched. Depends on the rhythm, I said. Groans, cheers, and a few scandalized snorts shook the rafters. Leon tried to look offended and failed. Tasha high-fived me so hard my palm tingled. Class dismissed, I added. Hydrate, stretch, and apologize to your hamstrings for the next 20 minutes. As the room broke into warm chatter, I walked the perimeter with Natan. He handed me a clipboard with the afternoon schedule and didn't comment on the way my fingers brushed his. Neither did I. We didn't need to. The soft electrical hum under my skin said present in the back of my head, and a second later his pulse answered same. Drones circled twice, then pulled off east, he murmured, scanning the doorways. We'll need lookouts on the rooftops by dusk. I'll take the first shift, I said. You'll take the third, he corrected without looking at me. Bossy. Organized, he said, then glanced sideways, the corner of his mouth easing. If you burn out, I lose my dance instructor. That a threat? A compliment, he said. In the afternoon, a pair of nurses from the community clinic dropped off a crate of expired but still fine supplies. A lawyer I didn't recognize left business cards and a promise. A neighbor brought a tray of empanadas and strict instructions to return the pan. People who didn't owe us anything decided to anyway. By evening, word had traveled. Not whispers anymore, footsteps, voices, the scrape of chairs. We hadn't planned a show, but the room needed one. A fight would have been the old language, so we translated. We set up the ring with new ropes that didn't smell like iron. We hung lights from scaffolding. Natan drew a line on the floor that wasn't a boundary so much as a welcome. No betting, he told the crowd as they settled in. No targeting, no collars. If you came here to own something, leave. Nobody left. I stood at the edge of the ring, wrapping my hands. The mark at my collarbone warmed. No flare, no flash, just a steady glow under skin like a remembered prayer. My body felt like mine. My scent, unmasked, unedited, breathed easy through the room and settled without fear. I glanced up at the balcony where Natan had once watched me like a puzzle he intended to solve. He was there now with his arms folded, eyes clear. Not a judge, not a hunter, a witness. Kai cued the track. The beat rose, a slow build, the sound of rain translated into drums. I stepped onto the canvas. For a second, the past tried to claim me. Basements, gunshots, running. Then the present put a hand on its chest and said, "Not tonight." I moved. It wasn't the proving dance anymore, not the knife-edge performance of a stray trying to be seen. It was something looser, deeper, a conversation with gravity. The crowd's noise softened, then swelled, a tide learning to follow rather than crush. I hit the steps we'd taught all day, and then broke them on purpose, showing how freedom looked in the bones. 2 volunteers joined me, Tasha, grinning like the floor was her accomplice, and Leon, who was born to fight but decided to learn how to listen. We moved around each other in patterns that were half spar, half celebration. When Leon reached too hard, Tasha let him chase, and then laughed when he missed. I anchored the space, rewrote the center, made room. When the song crested, I felt Natan's pulse sync with mine, through whatever old magic had threaded us together. 1-2, 1-2. Not a command, a companion beat. I thought of the warehouse and the rain and the way his voice had gone older than both of us when he said the vow. 1 breath, 1 heart. We weren't the same person, God no, but we were building something that didn't require chains to hold. The track ended. Silence held for a moment, thin and electric, and then the room detonated. Not wild the way it used to. Warm. Whole. Applause that sounded like a roof learning to believe in itself. I bowed. No performance, just gratitude, and hopped down from the ring. The crowd parted as I crossed to the base of the balcony stairs. Natan met me halfway, boots thudding on metal steps, the smell of rain in his clothes, though the sky had been clear all day. Up close, he looked like a man who'd been carrying too much for too long, and had finally found a way to set part of it down. "Are you still hiding your scent?" he asked, voice low, private within the noise. I shook my head, smile crooked. "No. Now let the whole city know what I've become." Something eased in his shoulders, maybe mine too. He didn't reach for me. He didn't have to. The mark under my skin answered him with a steady heat that felt a lot like yes. Behind us, Kai shouted at Leon for stepping on his own foot during the last combo. Someone started a chant for a rematch between the Alpha with elbows and Tasha the Menace. A toddler, God knows where she had come from, toddled by with one of our mismatched towels as a cape. The coffee tasted like victory and cheap beans. The paint on the new sign wasn't dry yet. We'd probably have to redo it tomorrow. Good. Tomorrow meant we'd still be here. I looked out over the room that wasn't a cage anymore, just walls with a door we kept open on purpose. The city beyond our windows kept blinking, kept breathing, kept daring us to fail and show up anyway. A pack isn't a mark. It's the skin under which choice lives.